Hi, Tingy. Thank you for coming on the Mind Talk podcast. Very happy to have you here. Can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Tingy. So I grew up in Canada, but I've lived in Hong Kong now for 18 years.
Mhm.
And my background has always been in corporate from different areas like consulting into tech. And most recently, last year, I decided to branch out and start my own business, which is a coaching business, and really expand on that going forward.
So, from a consultant to a parenting coach, can you tell us what got you to make that change? What was your why behind that?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. So I don't want to say midlife crisis. I don't think it was that at all, but I do think that there comes a point in time, I think, at least for me, when I was working in corporate, where I kind of questioned myself, like what I was doing here. And really, I think about life in really finite terms. I think like we don't have that long to live actually. And if I think about how I want to live the latter half of my life, what I was doing in my corporate world really wasn't giving me the fulfillment that I wanted. And I think a lot of that led me to think, if life is so short and I believe that this is an experience that we want to get the most out of, what do I want to do with that time? And what happened was I had actually been coaching internally. I've been coaching different alumni from my school. And there was a real affinity to working with women who were mothers and had gone through really, I would say not difficult, but they had struggled with motherhood, as I think a lot of us do, but maybe we don't talk about it.
Mm.
And it kind of led me to think about a lot about my own experience as a mother in the first year and how much of a steep learning curve it was for me. And so my focus kind of changed from just kind of general coaching, career coaching, to really focusing on mothers and helping them to navigate that whole transition of motherhood that we go through from like the moment of conception until the day we die, really.
Oh, that's beautiful. So,
Thank you.
basis on that, I'm looking for words now. I got so involved in what you were saying. Basis that, then how would you describe your core parenting philosophy?
So that's so funny that you asked that because someone else asked me this the other day and I was thinking about it that before I would say there was a clear pivot in time.
Mm.
So as parents, we parent based on how we were parented, right? In the sense that we take on a lot what that our parents give us, right? We inherit these patterns of behavior, we inherit these cultural patterns. And there was a moment in time which I'm very ashamed of actually. My daughter was probably a little younger than 2. And I had bought her a book and she wasn't interested in the book. Obviously, she
Mm.
can't read, but I had all these like expectations, like I'm going to give my daughter this book and she's going to be interested. And she wasn't. And in her behavior, something really triggered me, and I literally kind of like lost it.
Mm.
I took the book, I threw it against the wall. I threw it so hard it broke the spine of the book. I really kind of just was at my wit's end. And I don't know why, but it was just kind of my reaction in that moment. And I started kind of berating her and yelling at her. And
Mm.
it made me realize like all these things that were coming out were behaviors that I learned from my mom, right? And I'm not saying my mom's a horrible person. She did her best with what she had, what they all do, as we all do. But I realized in that moment that that wasn't the type of mother I wanted to be. And I did a very intentional pivot at that point in time to learn more about different parenting styles, to really learn more about myself and like what I wanted to take into parenting and what I wanted to leave behind. So, long story short, I think, my kids go to a Montessori school. I'm a big believer in being a guide in their life, but really giving them the opportunity to kind of learn practical skills, like really talking to them to the point now where my 8-year-old is kind of like, Mommy, I don't want to talk about my feelings right now. And I'm like, okay, it's okay if you don't want to talk about it, but at least we can have that conversation. And she knows that we have to talk about our emotions and name them. So I've made a very intentional pivot in my life in terms of how I want to parent.
Right. And you said that during your own journey, you tried to look at some different parenting styles or parenting frameworks. So, which do you think influenced you the most? And why do you think it influenced you?
I don't know if there was a particular model or framework. But I do think there were several people that I followed, one of them being Dr. Becky. I don't know if you've
Mhm.
ever heard of
Tell us
Becky, Dr.
about that.
Becky Good Inside. Okay, she's quite viral. I mean, she basically, if you look at her Instagram, I think her name's Becky Kennedy, if I'm not mistaken, but she just gives a lot of like parenting advice about how to communicate with your child, right? And I think coming from a very traditional Chinese family, it's very hierarchical, right? There's like a power play in the family. You don't question, you just listen and you do as you're told. And I really wanted to instill values in my children like curiosity,
Mm,
feeling the freedom to be able to ask questions and like not know all the answers, to be okay with making mistakes, to even when there's like misbehavior, to understanding what the situation was and how we could go about supporting each other, right? So, like, how do we manage conflict better? And she talks a lot about that. And I've also read like different books on parenting. There's a great book called, oh God, the title's so long. It's like the book you're, the book you wish your parents had read and your children will be thankful that you did. Something like that. It's super long. But essentially, the essence of the book is that we have to reflect and understand, you know, how we were parented and how that impacted us and influenced us and like whatever trauma it is that we carried, and
mm.
then how we're able to let that go and only take what's good and serves us going forward into our own parenting journey. But until we fully understand what those things are and how they've affected us, it's very difficult to kind of go forward and thrive and prosper if you haven't really processed what that is.
So you spoke about all the things that you've learned, other coaches and psychologists or whoever has been your inspiration, and also your own
Mm,
reflection about how you felt shame during that time. And I hear a lot of
yeah,
moms that also sit with shame and guilt, those are literally the two things we all carry with us. So then how do you
yeah.
define what successful parenting looks like when you work with your clients?
How do I define what successful parenting looks like? Hmm. That's a tough question, Rishi. I mean, success, and I want to be really careful about how I answer it because I think that at the end of the day, we all have different definitions of success,
Right.
right? And I can only speak from my experience where, for me, if my children are able to have empathy for others,
Mm,
right? If they are able to talk about their emotions, if they're able to self regulate, self soothe, to find their own confidence, right? Know their own value. To me, seeing those characteristics in my children, to me, is a sign of success as a parent, right? But that's my type of parenting. Whereas, like, I think other people may have very different goals
mm,
for their children or what they want them to come out as. So, what I look at in my coaching more is like success of the individual. So when I coach my clients, it's really about them, like the success that I see for them is if they gain insights on themselves, right? If
mm,
they have a deeper sense of self-learning and they take that learning and actually apply it. Because in a session itself, as you may know as well, is like you're never going to solve problems, right? But it's my job as a coach and a thinking partner to be able to plant some seeds, give you the tools, and then you go forth and prosper, right? And you have to do the work. The work comes from you to apply it in your life. And when people come back and like, just from that learning, I realized that I could do XYZ differently.
mm.
And that's really changed how I interact in my family. That to me is a success, right? And it's different for everybody.
So what I'm hearing is it's not one size fits all, but it's rather tailored to each person and each parent. And if,
Yes.
yeah, and if that's the case, then how does the first session look like? Like, what assessments do you do? How do you come to the conclusion, okay, this is what this parent needs or this client needs?
Mm.
And also,
So we've, yeah.
and also what should clients look for when they come to work with you or any other parenting coach? What
Mm.
are the questions they should carry with them?
I think I'll answer the second part first because I think coaching, coaching, if you want to call it, if you want to go to a therapist as well or a counselor, I think so much of that is dependent on the connection.
Mm,
Because if you don't have a good connection, it's very difficult to build trust. I think it's very difficult from there to build the ability to show vulnerability, right? And
mm,
when you show vulnerability is when your real self comes out, when you can really talk about and process things that are sometimes difficult. So that's my number one thing is
Mm.
connection when you're looking for a coach and whether you vibe, right? Like, can I tell this person some of the things that I may have never told another person and trust that they're going to help me through this and not judge me.
Mm.
So, I mean, that's what I would look for in a coach first and foremost is that I think you get a sense of whether you can trust somebody as well when you meet them and talk to them. And then I think you have to look for what that coach really has strengths in, right? Because there's a lot of coaches in the world, right? And it's really about what you want to get out of it, right? So for me, I'm very specific about who I help because that's my strength and where I really feel fulfilled and passionate. But if I were saying, okay, I can coach someone on career stuff, yeah, I can, but it's not my forte per se, right? It's not where I really want to be as a coach. So I think it's also knowing what you're looking for and what you're aiming to get out of it. Like, am I looking to get a new job? Okay, if that's the case, maybe it's not a general coach, but it's specifically a career transition coach who can help you, right? So kind of having an idea of that. To go to your first question, which is how does it start? So I always meet with my clients like as a chemistry kind of call, I would say, to understand, first of all, if this program is right for them. And I say that because, and you may probably see this as well, is like people come in and they may not have the right mindset. Like you can kind of see when people are kind of one foot in, one foot out the door. Maybe they're not committed or they don't have the time or they're kind of like kicking tires to find out. And for me, in those conversations, it's for me to also assess like, is the time that I'm going to give this person and the energy output
Mm.
the right thing, right? Is it aligned? Because if it's not, it's a waste of time for them, it's a waste of money for them, and it's a waste of time for me too, right? So that first call I think is really important to see whether someone is the right fit. And then after that, it's really about we fill in a wheel. Okay, so it's called the matrescence wheel, and it's something that I did, and then you did it as well. And you fill that in because one, it's an internal and an external, and you look at
Mm.
yourself internally, things like how you feel about the space that you have. How do you feel about your creativity? How do you feel about your sensuality in this moment? And there's external factors, right? Like finance, community, your job, right? All these things. And we kind of look at the wheel and understand where we're feeling really good in this moment or where we're feeling really low.
Mm.
And then we look at, okay, what are the areas we want to focus on as we go through this coaching journey? And from there, we then set different goals as we go forward. But the program itself is quite structured to make sure we really talk on values. We talk about life purpose. We talk about our leader within, allies, saboteurs. We do a lot of like somatic kind of work as well. So the outlying thing is that we always do that in the beginning, the wheel, to kind of understand where people are at in that moment.
Mm.
But then, as you know, with coaching and counseling, it can kind of go in lots of different ways too. So we try to be flexible
Mm.
because at the end of the day, it's about the client, right? And what they need to get out of it. It has nothing to do with me or what I need from them. It's really about them.
I like how you said it's really about the client, but then in Hong Kong, we see so many couples there that come from mixed, different ethnicities. And different
Mm.
ethnicities means different cultures, means different parenting styles and values. So how do you how do you work with these couples who have different parenting styles because of the cultures that they came from?
I love that question. I mean, my husband is also Western. He's from the US and
So you
he's
have
white.
lived experience as well.
Yes, he comes from a very different upbringing, very different family compared to mine, right?
Mm.
And when we first became parents, there's definitely conflict there in terms of no one's right or wrong because you come with a set of like cultural expectations and cultural learning that you bring into it. But it's about how do you create shared meaning and bring both of these things together.
Mm.
So regardless of like ethnicity or background or anything, when I look at parents, the first thing I think is like one, you have to understand that the emotional connection is the foundation for a strong family. And it is the basis that will actually impact your child's development and like their growth as they go forward. So the first and foremost is actually how do the parents maintain this emotional connection as they go forward?
Mm.
Because I think, and I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but like when my husband and I first had our first daughter, he was like, everything was about her, right?
Mm.
It was like, okay, how do we raise her? What do we do? And I was like, okay, what about us, right? We have to be strong in our marriage. We have to have, a good foundation because we are the pillars for her.
Mm,
And he and I did not see eye to eye on that. We just felt very differently. And so as a result, there's conflict, right? Like I felt that my needs weren't being met. He
mm,
may have felt like, oh, I'm never doing anything right, even though I'm focusing on our child, right? So it was really about having a conversation and understanding like what our family philosophy is and like what kind of values we want to have for our children and how we want to raise them together and
mm.
integrate our cultures. But the first thing is the emotional connection. It has
Yeah.
to be strong. So that's the first step. And then the second thing is like I've done some training under like Gottman,
Mm,
and he talks a lot about the idea that you have to, what's the word? They use the term building love maps, okay?
mm,
And in layman's terms, it basically means knowing your partner
mm,
to the depths of like the nth degree because we all evolve and change as people, right? So it's like really understanding what are their hopes, what are their dreams, how is work for them, who do they not like at work, who's their best friend, what's
mm,
their favorite food now, right? And as we evolve in like our partnerships and couples over time, people change. And also we kind of forget that people are changing all the time and we have these assumptions that they're the same. So that's a second step is like always being aware of how to stay on top of what's happening in your partner's world.
mm.
And then the third and last part, which is fundamental to everything, is actually just always having, fondness and admiration for your partner.
Yep.
So like being aware of how you deal with conflict, right? Like
Mm,
different types of characteristics that come up, but
mm,
also showing affection, gratitude, appreciation.
mm.
So there's different steps in that. And those are the three things that I always focus on in the beginning with my clients.
So what I'm really hearing is good parenting starts with a good couple relationship.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. In a nutshell.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so you really start working at the core of the family. And basically, I'm envisioning literally you working with the roots so that the tree blossoms and there are fruits and all of that on it.
Exactly. So if you imagine like in a relationship, right? If you don't have those three layers, like understanding your partner, fondness and admiration, things like that. If you don't have these layers, and then one day you're like, oh, let me take you out to a nice dinner, and that's like
Mm,
our romance. That's not going to really hit well
mm,
because you haven't built the foundation, right? It's going to feel superficial. It's going to feel maybe performative, right? But
mm,
when you build those layers and then you do something like that, it's seen in a very different way, right? And so from that basis, as you mentioned, everything can grow and thrive better,
mm.
but you got to build the foundation. Otherwise, it's weak.
Otherwise, it's weak. Do you ever have parents come in where one is highly motivated and sees the problem is very reflective, while the other one is, we good, we don't need a parenting coach, quite skeptical about the whole thing, or even resistant? Do you have
Yes,
parents like that?
yes. And I can put myself in this place included. I think like a lot of times when people come to me, it's the woman or the wife that comes to me
Mm,
first, right? Because I think women, we think differently. We think about community, we think about harmony, we think about those things. Whereas I think also men, from the last, I don't know, 50 plus years have kind of grown to not really, I guess, acknowledge emotions or think
mm,
about things like that, right? And so it often comes like that. But then I do think that we are seeing a change. Like I do see some partners who come to me and the father's very engaged, like he's really excited. And I love that because I think we are moving in a different direction with our generation now. Like we see fathers that are a lot more involved. They are a lot more attuned to like their own feelings and how they want to parent and like be very intentional about that.
mm.
So I think that's really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So, a lot of parents struggle with behavioral issues, screen time, defiance, it could be tantrums. What are some of
Mm.
the management tools you would give? Or are there even management tools for this?
So my children are 8 and 5.5, almost 6.
Mm,
again, I can only speak from my experience because I'm not an expert in like screen time management, and I can only talk about what we've done and what we've seen.
Hmm.
And I'd love to kind of hear from you as well, how you've managed this. But we have like a system where we have that my kids on their door has like a full list of chores that they have to do. So it's everything from like self-management, like brushing their teeth, putting cream on their face, eating their breakfast, getting dressed, making their bed, to things like doing creative work,
Hmm.
to reading a book, Mandarin, and then what's the other thing? Helping somebody. And
Hmm.
once they've fulfilled all of these items, then they are allowed to ask me if they can watch TV. And then it's up to me to say yes or no. So I make them effectively jump through hoops to earn it. And
Okay.
even then, they might get maybe an hour a day at most.
Hmm.
So we don't give them their own iPads or anything like that. I don't even let my children actually watch YouTube, even though I've worked for Google and I know we have like all these child kind of security layers. I still believe that there are times when they might see something that is not appropriate.
Hmm.
So I don't even let them watch YouTube on their own. And I'm very wary of like games. Like I've been reading a lot about things like Roblox
Hmm.
and like the dangers behind like kind of child grooming and all this stuff. So I'm really quite cautious about my children's exposure to screen time and also how I expose them online as well. Like I don't put their pictures online or anything like that because with AI things are just crazy right now. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm probably more on the risk adverse side and trying to kind of prolong that as long as possible.
I think I'm quite opposite of that. I wouldn't
what
say
what
like, yeah,
yeah.
sure, you want to go and play video games for 5 hours, do that, but it's your grades at the end of the day. And my son has actually reduced the number of hours he spends online because he
Mm.
appreciates the amount of work he has to put in.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you're fostering a lot of like independence and
Yeah.
independent thought and taking their own risks. It's a good learning for me to think about as my kids get older, how much freedom and flexibility I give them.
As teenage, I think as a parent of younger kids, the challenges are different. It's more
Mm,
bringing that balance with ourselves. And as we
mm,
get older, I find it's important to see if we are able to trust them. And that comes from if our parents were able to trust us. My
hmm
parents did trust me a lot. So I think I just
mm.
extend that to my children.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Lucky. They're very lucky children.
Thank you. Want to ask you about some of the parenting methods that we see that are used regularly, like reward charts, timeouts, sending
Mm,
kids to their room, grounding, no screen time. To me, I've always felt, and actually, that's wrong. My son actually pointed that out. He didn't do his homework, or and I said, no screen time for 1 week. And he's like, by no screen time for 1 week means I'm going to do my homework. No, I'm not. I'm just going to be angry with you. So, how about you ask me to
hmm
complete my homework and I'll do it? And we continue with the screen time. I'm like, okay, smarty
I
pants.
love the negotiation and also logical thinking, which I can't say that I don't agree with, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so I actually learned from him all of these techniques, mom, that you adopt, like no screen time. Can't go for a birthday party. How's that going to work? I'm just
Mm,
going to sulk and be angry. Let me go for the birthday party. I made a mistake. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again.
yeah.
So what are your views
Um,
about that? And I didn't plan to take over the conversation.
no, not at all. Not at all. It's so great to learn from a more experienced mom, right? It's like things that I can apply to my life as well. How do I do this? I mean, I actually don't remember the last time we disciplined our kids. And I don't mean in the sense that we let them run free and when things, they misbehave, we don't address it. I think I don't believe in taking things away. I think it's more like children are at that age, at least the age that my kids are like learning to push boundaries, right? And like understand like how far they can go. And I believe that it's my job as a parent to kind of maintain those boundaries, right?
Mhm.
And to show them that it's okay to make mistakes and to be okay with that and like understand how we manage the mistakes. So if they got into a fight and there's conflict, one, I take a step back and I kind of let my two children kind of figure out how they're going to like resolve it on their own.
Yeah.
So I don't really like to step in and like be a referee because one, I haven't seen everything. So I really try to foster like a sense of independence and like problem solving by themselves.
Mm,
And when people like let's say hurt each other's feelings, right? Maybe they say a mean word or they call each
mm,
other a mean name and then someone has hurt feelings, you know, I'm not a believer in saying sorry right away because I think sorry is just performative. I think it's really understanding
yeah.
what those words inflicted, right? Like what kind of emotion it elicited and what that person needs to do to support the other person, right? If
Mm,
they're feeling sad. So that's kind of how I approach challenges like with my kids. And if they're not doing something, I've never said like, oh no, you don't get something as a result. Like I don't know if that
mm,
really makes sense at all. It's kind of understanding, well, why don't you want to do it?
mm,
And if you don't want to do it, what's the alternative, right? Like, what else can we do here? Is it changing a different time? For example, if you're too tired to do homework now, can we do it later? Or is it because you need support and it's like too hard to do on your own, right?
mm.
These are different things I think we have to ask rather than being like, no, if you don't do it now, then you don't get this. To me, that doesn't make sense. It's more of a conversation.
More of a conversation. And I agree that parenting is a lot more about communication than anything else.
Yeah.
But in a place like Hong Kong, where everyone is working round the clock, how does one achieve that?
Oh gosh, I think when I was working full time in corporate, I think I definitely had less bandwidth to
Mm,
manage these things, very honestly with you. I think like I would catch myself kind of working and my child would be here behind me and be like, Mommy, like that. And I would be like, 1 minute, one
mm,
minute, I'm working, I'm working. And I realized that it's even though I was present in this space and my presence is here, I was not present. And I think it's truly about how you are present in the moment. So even if it's like taking 2 minutes to just turn around and address what she needs
mm,
is better than me just being like, give me 2 minutes, give me 2 minutes. And so how I try to look at it now is like in the time that I'm here, just because I'm in the same space doesn't mean that I'm giving them my full attention. Doesn't mean I'm doing a good quality job. It's really about focusing on them, even if it's for 2 minutes,
mm,
and then being like, okay, I've helped you. This is what you need. Now I need to go back and do what I do. So that's the change that I'm trying to make. And it's easier now because I work for myself. But, in a corporate job, sometimes you have all these external factors and things that are really tough to manage,
mm.
and pressure and things like that. So it's been a learning curve for sure. And I heard my kids kind of be like, oh, you're on a call again. I know, 1 minute, 1 minute. I know, I know. And it was like, oh God, this is like what I'm saying to them, and this is what they're repeating. And I don't want that. So it's like, I have to be really intentional about how I communicate with them
Mm.
and be there.
Yeah, that's true. It's a lot of self-reflection that is required when you are a parent. And
So much. It's so much work.
I hear you. I
And
hear
you've
you.
made it 19 years already.
Yeah. And I thought that was like that ends there, but no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't end until we die.
Yeah. You mentioned that a lot of parents parent the way that their parents parented them.
Yeah.
But sometimes parents could also have their own triggers, burnout, or problems with emotion regulation.
Hmm.
Not even because they have learned it in their childhood, but just because they are dealing with something else.
Mm.
How do you support parents like this?
So I think that comes down to the fundamental difference between coaching and therapy.
Mm,
So in therapy, right, how I kind of explain the difference to my clients is that it's really about the past,
mm,
okay, and things that have happened to you in your past, trauma, whatever it is, and be able to like process that, right, and move forward. Coaching is more about we can acknowledge what has happened, but
mm,
it's more about how is it affecting you today and how will you move forward, right? And what does it look like in the future
mm,
with regards to whatever the situation is? So when it comes to talking about like past traumas and triggers and things like that, my focus isn't on the why and the context of what happened. It's more about how is it impacting you now today in real life and how would you like it to look? And
Mm,
then from there, understanding how we can work together to kind of look at actionable, tangible steps to
mm,
move towards whatever that future looks like. So
mm,
we don't really we could process some of the emotion, but it's not about peeling back the layers and deep diving into the why behind what had happened. That's not really my job,
mm.
nor is it in my pay grade or my qualification, right? I'm like not a psychologist at all. So I focus on current and future.
Current and future. And if someone was listening to this interview and was wondering if they need a parenting coach, what signals should they look for that they need to work with a parenting coach?
That's a really good question. A very, very good question, actually. I would say for mothers, if you really want to, how can I say this? I think it's for mothers who really want to understand themselves, right? So, on a deeper level, and understanding themselves will then help them to understand how they want to be a mother, right?
Mm,
Or like what motherhood looks like for them. Because I would say if you're just conceived, right, and you're still pregnant and you're thinking about, okay, when this change comes, which is a very big change that you actually have no idea what it's like because you've
mm,
never gone through it before, and you want to prepare yourself,
mm,
that's a good time to be thinking about working with a coach. But then once the baby comes, you kind of hit a period where life is kind of crazy, right? I want
mm,
to say for the first 6, maybe even 9 months is like
mm,
a time when you just don't really have bandwidth. But probably around that 9 month mark when your baby's 9 months old or further, you'll have the capacity to then kind of think about, if you haven't already thought about it, like, okay, who am I now as a mother, right? Because we go through identity changes from individual to mother. We go through relationship changes. We go through like philosophical changes, physical changes, sociological changes. And you might be feeling a bit lost. And that's probably a moment when you're like, okay, I need a coach to kind of help me and map out how I want to build my motherhood journey, right? Like, what does it look like so that I go through this experience with confidence, that I go through it feeling like I've got some tools, I've got some structure. And it doesn't mean that it's all going to be puppies and rainbows every day. As you and I both know, having children is tough.
mm,
But in a way, it kind of gives you a little bit of like an outline and a draft to be able to say, okay, cool. Like when I'm in a moment of distress, I know who I need to rely on. I know the tools that
mm,
I can use to kind of self-regulate. I know who I want to be and who I envision myself to be as a mother, and then how to get there. I think for parents, it's similar in the sense that if you, okay, there's kind of two sets of parents.
mm.
When you become a parent, you either are the type that says, oh, my parents did a great job. I think they made good decisions. You shook your
I
head.
don't think any
These
child
are
is ever going to say that.
but actually, interestingly, research shows that we all kind of fall into like one or two of these
Mm,
buckets. Okay. The first one is like, oh, yeah, okay, I want to replicate this. And the second bucket is the exact opposite, where it's like, I want to do things completely differently.
mm,
So I think that whether you're in the first bucket or the second bucket, if your intention is to really, I think, have a deeper understanding of how you will be as a parent and how you want to maintain connection with your partner, right? As you go through some turbulence and highs and lows in every different season, and you want to really build strong connections with your child,
mm,
then that's when you want to work with a coach. Because I think a lot of people, myself included, is like you think, ah, I have read the books, I've read some websites, I've followed some influencer moms, like I've got this. But I think, and I know that it's starkly different from that, right? The actual experience. And you may not know who to go to, you may not know the resources. It might be very discombobulated, right? Everything in your mind in terms of what this journey looks like.
mm,
And so that's what I'm there to do, is to help people kind of clarify
mm,
what they want for themselves, right? And then kind of build a roadmap for themselves on how to get there.
mhm. I would like to do a quick fire round with you. Are you ready for it?
No, but sure.
Okay. One parenting method you wish would disappear.
I've been reading a lot about this I don't want to swear Fuck around and find out. I
Mm,
think that that's a very strange, that feels very foreign to me as a way of parenting children and connecting with children. No.
okay. One parenting idea you wish every parent knew by heart.
Oh, there's so many. How do I choose one? Okay, this is one of the best pieces of advice I think I've had, and it works, I think, maybe at every age, but when you're in a moment of like rage, when you're like really angry at your child, what I do is I actually envision myself as like an 80-year-old
Mm,
and what that life looks like. And I know that I would probably give everything to
mm,
come back to this moment, no matter how difficult it felt like.
mm.
And that kind of helps me to kind of ground and be like, you know what, this problem isn't so bad. Like it's manageable.
Timeout, useful tool or outdated practice?
Outdated.
Is no screen time realistic?
No, unrealistic.
The most overrated parenting tip you hear online.
Oh, most overrated parenting tip. Oh my gosh, I don't know. I don't know. Is there? Okay, that one I'm gonna have to pass because I really don't know how to answer that.
Okay. Your favorite age to coach parents through, like the children's age.
The children's age, I want to say, I think before the child is born, I think the mother is in like a really interesting place. So
Mm,
I really love that pre-birth, prenatal kind of time,
mm.
or kind of 9 months to 1 year time, because then you can see parents actually have some semblance of like mental capacity, like they're able to breathe
Okay.
and think about themselves.
Okay. One book or resource you would share with our audience?
Oh, I don't have it here in my office. It's actually a book. Well, okay, there's two. One is the one I mentioned earlier about the book you wish your parents had read and your children will be thankful you did. I think that's the actual title. And the second one is called Matrescence. And I think that this book really captures the experience of going through pregnancy and birth and motherhood and all these changes that a lot of people cannot articulate. And I thought she did it really beautifully. That's the second book that I think would be great to read if you're a mother. Not like these books like what to expect when you're expecting. I think those things are just really logistics, but this is really about the mental changes you think about. It's just really good.
Thank you so much for your time, Tingy.
Yeah, thank you. This has been lovely. Thank you so much for your amazing questions as well and for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you.